Before I really dig in, former Senator Rick Santorum has the answer to the Defense of Marriage Act, which we know this administration refuses to defend. Santorum's suggestion, the House Republicans appoint their own lawyer to defend the law. I think that's a superb idea because the House has a right to defend its own legislation against attack in court if the executive branch will not. There's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits that. And so they're facing a rogue administration. It is a perfectly legitimate effort if they do it. And Mr. Boehner, you should. And what that lawyer would do is he'd go into these courtrooms where DOMA's under attack and file a motion and ask for the right to participate as a party, as a lawyer on behalf of the House of Representatives. It is a perfectly legitimate suggestion and a very intelligent suggestion. So kudos to Rick Santorum. I think it's a great idea, and I think, Mr. Speaker, you need to pick the ball up and run with this one. You cannot have the President of the United States, as a matter of policy, undermining the legislative branch. Now, I've tried to explain this. I was on as a guest on a weekend program on WMAL, my affiliate in the Washington, D.C. area. It's a great little show. And I was asked the question, constitutionally, Mark, what's the answer to this? Who gets to make the final decision on what is or isn't constitutional? Walter Williams was right today. Walter E. Williams was right today. And I've made this point myself. It's not all that clear. Every branch has a right to defend the Constitution. I wrote a book called Men in Black about the tyranny of the Supreme Court and the judiciary. Judicial review is an implied power in the Constitution. The Constitution does not say the Supreme Court in every instance has the final say, even if the Supreme Court believes that it is the most supreme of the three branches. So we conservatives need to be careful. We can't now say, well, no, only the courts can make these decisions. Really? But there are ways to deal with this stuff. And Rick Santorum came up with one. When you have a president who rejects, what he's rejecting is American tradition and history and precedent, overwhelming precedent, which is what radical leftists try to do, they need to be answered. And to wring our hands and whine about it isn't an answer. The House Republicans, on behalf of the House of Representatives, because they run the place, need to hire a top-notch litigator to represent the House of Representatives in this litigation in lieu of the Justice Department. It's a great idea, and they need to do it. Now, the President of the United States today was talking a lot, but I want to reveal to you, because of rather, I think, breaking news, how diabolical this man is. And when I say diabolical, I mean diabolical. How you cannot believe what he says, ever. And you must comprehend that he's going to push his ideology no matter what, no matter how. He gives this speech at the National Governors Association. He gives this speech, and he gives the impression that he's going to give the states permission to seek from the federal government the right to withdraw from Obamacare's mandates in 2014 rather than 2017, so they have some flexibility, as long as they do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Okay. Now, there's a lot of problems with it. A lot of problems with that. It gives enormous power to the federal government that the federal government ought not have under any law, let alone Obamacare. That issue aside, even though it's important, there's more to this story. But before I get to that, I want you to hear the president today and hear how he sounds, how he's trying to act like he's conciliatory, where he wants new ideas and fresh ideas, but he's up to no good. First, here's what he says. Cut 4, go.
So a few weeks ago, Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat, and Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown, a Republican, and Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu,
a dingbat,
they proposed legislation that would accelerate that provision. So it would allow states to apply for such a waiver by 2014 instead of 2017. I think that's a reasonable proposal. I support it. It will give you flexibility more quickly while still guaranteeing the American people reform. If your state can create a plan that covers as many people as affordably and comprehensively as the Affordable Care Act does, without increasing the deficit, you can implement that plan, and we'll work with you to do it.
That covers as many people. What kind of plan would do that? So, after Obama gives his pitch to the National Governors Association, the New York Slimes promotes it as Obama taking the first major step toward compromise and showing flexibility on the all-important Obamacare. Well, listen to this from Politico. On call, officials stress public options in healthcare shift. Follow this, because this affects you. Jennifer Habercorn reports that Obama's move to allow states flexibility in spending healthcare funds is the most significant change since the law was enacted, and a potential gesture toward critics. But a source on a White House conference call with liberal allies this morning says the administration is presenting it to Democrats as an opportunity to offer more expansive health care plans than the one Congress passed. Healthcare advisors Nancy Ann DeParle and Stephanie Cutter stressed on the off-the-record call that the rule change would allow states to implement single-payer health care plans, as Vermont seeks to, and true government-run plans like Connecticut's Sustanet. You got that? This is not aimed at flexibility like you might think, or that you would have been led to believe, listening to that audio I just played or reading the New York Slimes. The flexibility goes one way. More authoritarian, more tyranny, not more liberty and competition. The source on the call summarizes the official's point, which is not one the administration has sought to make publicly, as casting the new flexibility language as an opportunity to try more progressive, not less expansive approaches on the state level. Quote, they're trying to split the baby here. On the one hand, tell supporters this is good for their pet issues, versus a message for the general public that the president is responding to what he is hearing and that he's being sensible. The president is a damn liar. There, I said it and I mean it. And so is his staff. To stand up in front of the National Governors Association in a national speech to pretend that he's allowing flexibility with the states, when in fact what he's doing through the back door is a single-payer health care plan. If that doesn't take it, damn it, I don't know what does. And the phony media in this country, the New York Slimes, showing his centrist willing to compromise, finally moving. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, the lawyers have figured this out. The same lawyers, no doubt, who figured out how to drive cap and trade through this nation without a single vote for it in the United States Congress, meaning without a single passing of any legislation. They didn't have the votes for a single-payer plan, but they want to do it administratively. Get it? Oh, we're going to give them more flexibility, wink, wink. Hey, Governor of Maryland, Governor of Massachusetts, you other left-wing governors out there, go ahead, run with it. We're giving you flexibility. And since we oversee what state system is now approved, we'll approve yours, just like we're going to approve Vermont's. You dark, dark blue states, you're the tail wagging the dog. Who cares what the American people are saying? Who cares what the House of Representatives wants? Who cares what the Senate decides? We'll do this administratively, and we'll call it compromise and flexibility and centrism. Do you know how the EPA got the power, the supposed power, the putative power, to impose its cap-and-trade will on the rest of us? It didn't get it through any legislation. It didn't get it through any recent vote of the Senate and the House, which wouldn't give it to them. It got it through the Supreme Court. Do you know how this case came to the Supreme Court? Because Massachusetts and some of the other liberal states decided we're going to challenge the Environmental Protection Agency on this issue of carbon dioxide. We believe it's a pollutant covered by the Clean Air Act, even though it clearly isn't. Let's see how far we can get with this. They go to one court, then the other. They get to the Supreme Court, and it's a 5-4 decision. The activists on the Supreme Court say, oh, yes, yes, it's covered by the Clean Air Act, and it's up to the EPA to decide how to regulate it. Hands the massive power to the Environmental Protection Agency, takes it from the United States Congress and the people. The EPA was winking all the way as these left-wing governors and attorneys general were bringing these lawsuits. They wanted these lawsuits. They wanted the Supreme Court to give them the power, and the Supreme Court gave it to them. So off to the races they are. Now we have a president giving a speech, pretending that he's going to have all these new flexible opportunities for states to experiment. to pull back from the precipice. As long as they cover everybody, as long as there's no additional cost, as long as they meet all of his requirements, as long as promises are made that cannot be met. And then they have their special phone call with their left-wing bloggers and others. Supposed to be in secret, supposed to be hush-hush. Somehow a word leaked out. This is really intended to give the bluest of blue governors, the big leftists out there, whatever's left of them, despite the landslide victory in the last November election, to give them the opportunity to lurch left, to put in place a single-payer health care system. You can only move left, you see. You can never move back. Always left, harder left, more radical left. That's all that will be approved. And then I have a prediction for you, ladies and gentlemen. Vermont will have a single-payer plan. Maryland will have a single-payer plan. Massachusetts, some of these others will have single-payer plan. Then we will get the proverbial equal protection lawsuit under the 14th Amendment. Why should it be that a person in South Carolina is treated one way for health care purposes and a person in Vermont is treated another way? Then we go back to the courts, and the courts say, oh, that's so true. That's so true. We can't have these different systems in the states, these competing systems, like abortion. Remember that? No, we can't have that. We need a single-payer plan. Oh, I think I've got it all figured out. These people are diabolical. We'll be right back. I want to explain something to Republicans out there. Whether it's the Speaker of the House or the Governor of New Jersey or the former Governor of Arkansas, I want you to listen to me. We're not interested in your compromises with Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and blowing kisses to them. We want them defeated. We want them pushed back. We want our country back. We want our health care back. We will decide what happens when we breathe out with our air. We don't need somebody looking over our shoulder. We do not want to be tormented anymore. We do not want our liberties played with. Do you understand? We're not interested in compromise or negotiation. We're interested in defeating these people because they stand in the way of our liberty, our private property rights, and our pursuit of happiness. They're destroying the future of this nation. And if we do not succeed, not in some absurd, timid compromise, but in defeating them, then the country's gone. Gone. I don't want to hear anymore how wonderful Obama or Michelle are on obesity or whatever. I could give a damn. We'll be right back.